with the Anthony Joshua fight in June officially being canceled by Matchroom, and no other fights on tap right now by any of the other promoters, and understanding that even if this stay at home by the first week of May, that in most cases, it's going to take fighters a good 6 to 8 weeks to be back in fighting shape. We're looking at July, the earliest. I'm hearing now possibly September, the earliest, where we're going to see, some of these fights taking place in general. I wonder, what happens? How do things shake out? What fights begin to get made? Are promoters going to start to try to make up for lost time by making some of these mega fights, because they're basically losing an entire quarter of the year to this pandemic that's really crippled. And so I'm just sitting back here thinking, what are we going to be looking at come the fall? We hear about these fights like Canelo Triple G. Is it time that that Terence Crawford is going to get to fight Errol Spence or Sean Porter? Are we going to see a lot of these fights that haven't been able to be made before really kind of fast track themselves, because these promoters need to try to make up for some lost ground? And how does this play out for the Fury Wilder 3 fight? Is the interest still there? Does this help Wilder? Does it hurt? Especially being in the business with all my fighters on hold. And so, that's what I got right there.
Peter, you were asking the question about, because of the pandemic, because of schedules being pushed back, does it bring about a stronger sense of urgency for promoters and networks to make bigger fights? And I 100% think it does. Whether or not you'll still see people be greedy and try to bide their time and that sort of thing remains to be seen. But the way I see it is, it's almost like a strike, right? It's not as bad as that, because obviously fans are not blaming the fight game necessarily for this absence, but fans are going to want to see action when it comes back. And because we're already talking about a sport that's in a position where fans are kind of like, you don't give us good fights, it's so much politics involved. It seems to me that at least for a 8 to 12 month time period, there would need to be some show of solidarity amongst promoters for what's good for the overall business moving forward. And obviously, you'll be able to speak to that portion of what I just said much better than I can, having dealt with so many promoters, closely over the years. But it just makes sense to me that the Bob Arums, the De La Hoyas, the Al Haymans, and I know he's technically not a promoter, but we know he functions as that. All of those people, the Eddie Hearns, would all say, you know what? We can't play around for this little time period. First of all, even more so than some sort of utopian, obligation to the fans, even more than that, we've lost some money this year. How can we make this back as quickly as possible? And to me, the answer is in giving some fights to people that maybe they thought what they may not see. So like you said, the Errol Spence to Terence Crawford fights, the Joshua Wilder fight, if that materializes at some point. I mean, unless Tyson Fury falls off the wagon completely from a conditioning standpoint, I expect him to do the same thing to Deontay Wilder in the third fight. So who knows how that works. But conceptually, giving some of these fights that have been mere fantasy concepts seems to me to be the quickest way to recoup as much money as that you've lost as possible. There's no way to say for sure how you'll get that back. But beyond that, it also seems to be the best way to kind of reward fans for waiting and coming back to the sport after a shutdown. So, I don't know.
listen, I mean, you made a lot of good points, and that's what, part of what I was saying was it's more so about the money.
Yeah.
Yes, it's about giving the fans what they want, but this wasn't something that this wasn't the plan, right? This is just the circumstance, but I think that, everyone's going to have to come together and figure out how to make up for lost time, make up for lost revenue, also give the fans what they want, keep everybody happy. There was a lot of momentum coming into 2020. 2020 started off with a bang. We had some great fights on the horizon. Fights were being announced every week all around the world.
Yeah.
And came to a screeching halt. So you made a lot of good points, and I think all of them are accurate, and I think that it's time that when this does pass, we look at the landscape of what is, and I think that, jump into some of these mega fights is just going to benefit everybody right from the get-go, and I think it's going to kind of, refuel and kickstart the sport and have us back on track.
I would agree. So hopefully soon we'll be talking about actual fight news and not as much speculation. Right. And hopefully we can see these some encouraging numbers from the battle against COVID-19, the coronavirus. And first and foremost, humanity can start to recover, and then sports can kind of follow suit, or maybe vice versa. Maybe sports will kind of lead the way into a healthier space.